Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Well, today Russia expanded their bridgehead near New York village. Let's go closer to the place. So it was yesterday and it is today. They have those side attacks to make the main vector of their advancement less vulnerable, because Ukraine still might strike this area from the sides. And definitely we already see that they touched this village. For now just with the gray area, but we understand that they broke through Ukrainian defense line, which was located in this place. And also they have the advancement also from this side too, directly to Druzhba. So the idea for the Russian army is to go to Toretsk from two of the sides, via New York and directly into the settlement from the east. Well, obviously in those attack missions Russia loses lots and lots of the forces. Just look at those guys, the Russian minority is probably from Buryatia or something, and they're up to go for offensive mission, and right before they start to receive the propaganda injection right into their brains from so-called Russian Orthodox Church. The best position in the Russian army is the military priest. Just look at this guy, he is never hungry. He told them, okay, I'll just read the prayer for you, but the next time you should know it, or something like that. What's the next time, guy? Come on. They have many China-made dirt bikes and also all-terrain vehicles, China-made. And just look at the eyes of this soldier, he understands everything. He just doesn't need to learn the prayer for the next time, he understands that. It is his last one. My friends, if you like the job that I do daily on YouTube, you may also consider supporting me on the Patreon page, which you may find just in the video description below. Thank you so much for your motivation, your kind support, stay awesome. And you know, it looks like not just the Russian casual soldiers need some final prayer, but also their generals. According to the information from the Russian side, from their military bloggers, General Tuprinsky was HIMARS. It actually happened 2 days ago, but since that time we don't have any sort of the information from General. The Russian military command officially did not comment this information, but we know that he attended the command post in one of the frontline points, and that facility was just HIMARS with General inside. Whether he obtained some of the wounds, whether he is KIA, at this point no one knows, but it's unsafe for the Russian generals to go closer to the front lines, but sometimes they have to do it because there is the lack of the communication between their military branches, so sometimes they have to go, and that's also why they have tremendous losses among their generals. So for now I'm not stating that Russia lost this general, but the probability of it is quite high. I'll continue to monitor the information about Tuprinsky, because he is the best Russian general, so Putin's general at this stage. Well respected by the Russian soldiers, and he also performed successful missions against Ukraine, so it's a great enemy of Ukrainian army. Because unlike the other mainstream Russian generals, this guy is really competent. On the background we see the symbol of the Russian paratroopers, so this guy is the commander of the Russian paratroopers. Or maybe was, in the best case scenario. One more direction where Russia took some of the ground is Novoselov-Kapersha. They expand this bridgehead so far that now they're moving from the north towards Novoselov. So it was yesterday and it is today. There is a great threat for this village. If Russia captures this village, they will do the same in this area. Because it's the only defense line for Ukraine, this village is important because it has the crossroad and basically lots of the communication supply lines are going through this village. So using it, Russia in the future might try to advance to Zhelanne, the next village on the way. It is crazy, but the Russian propaganda media showed the real footage of how one Russian soldier finishes the other one, then he received the wounds from the drone strike. You may ask me, why do they show that? Well, they say that those are not the Russian soldiers but Ukrainians. Ukrainians who finish each other. They call us barbarians. Guys, I don't even know how to call it. It's the cynicism, I think. It's the proper word for this, from the Russian propaganda at first and from the Russian management, because their soldiers, they know that those are also the Russian soldiers. So Russian propaganda may say that, okay, those are not Russians here, those are Ukrainians. It basically shows that Russia simply doesn't care about their own soldiers, showing those videos just live in their TV propaganda. By the way, it's one of the main channels of Russia. As you probably know already, there was the visit of Viktor Orban to Moscow. He met with Vladimir Putin. Again, he talked about some sort of the ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, as he, by the way, said to President Zelensky during the visit to Kiev. But Putin said that he doesn't really need the peace agreement over Ukraine. He continued his demand for Ukraine to withdraw the forces from all of the Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson and Zaporizhia Oblast. Voluntarily withdraw the forces. It's impossible, it's just the capitulation of Ukraine. And he said that only under those conditions Russia will start negotiations with Ukraine. So it's not even the demand for peace, it's the demand to start negotiations. So Russia is against the ceasefire, but they blame Ukraine that it is against the ceasefire because in those conditions Ukraine should handle elections, presidential elections, which, as Putin says, Zelensky has absolutely no chances to win. Again, Russia tries to put its nose into the internal Ukrainian affairs, telling Ukrainians who they need to elect or not. So once again, I believe that under Putin's ruling, there will be no peace in Ukraine. He is just oriented to finish Ukraine, to put his own puppet government and make Ukraine totally pro-Russian as Belarus is. And I just hope that all of the Western politicians, including Viktor Orban, would finally understand that. Putin's full-scale war in Ukraine and crazy demands for peace agreement are showing that he is not really interested in peace initiatives on Ukraine. Well, we understand that Russia needs some certain break to reform its army and attack Ukraine once again. That's what they would like to do, but Ukraine also understands that. Unfortunately, politicians like Trump, they do not see this picture. They think that it's possible to agree with Putin, probably partially on his demands to give Russia some parts of Ukrainian territory. We heard this rhetoric from Trump, but it is not a regional conflict. No, Russia wants to occupy Ukraine, and after it, there is the high chance for Russia to attack other countries, and there United States of America should be involved according to the NATO's 5th article. To conclude, the regime change in Russia is absolute must-have for this war to be ended. Meanwhile, Marine Le Pen said that France will not send its forces to Ukraine, and also that there will be the prime minister from her party. He'll end the initiative of France to use the French-made weaponry on the Russian territory. So she doesn't say that France will stop military supplies for Ukraine or support for Ukraine, but after all she wants to cut some of the military initiatives, which are currently, I think, not in force because France haven't sent their forces to Ukraine, and I also haven't seen how Ukraine targets the Russian military airfields, for example, with the French-made Scalp cruise missiles. So she might cancel nothing but the words of President Macron. It means that all what she said about that stuff is just populism. In UK, everything looks much better for Ukraine. Labour's took the power with extraordinary majority, so Rishi Sunak is not a prime minister any longer. Now the new prime minister is Keir Starmer. And the best thing that he said that there is no any policy change for supporting Ukraine. So yes, it's just the internal business of the United Kingdom to change the parliament, to change the prime minister and so on, and it really doesn't touch Ukraine. So if people voted for Labour's, why not, right? After all, we live in the democratic society, so majority should decide. Again, here I'm not leaning to support conservatives or Labours, I don't really care. The main thing that the pro-Russian Reform Party was defeated too. They have just few of the seats and it's not a decisive party in the British Parliament. Kind of the interesting information is coming just right now from the Russian channels. They say that Ukrainian drone was shot down near Sevastopol, and there is also the strike towards the Kerch bridge. I think in this case it's better to show it with this arrow. So Russia closed the bridge and they used the air defense systems. I wonder if it is a big attack on a Kerch connection or not. Probably not, because Russia tells about those things regularly. We'll see how it goes tomorrow morning. Alright, let's continue to speak about the United States politics because it influences Ukraine a lot. So for today, the day I'm filming the video on 5th of July 2024, Trump is leading if there were elections on this particular day. We see the rating not in percent but in votes for delegates. So Joe Biden for today has 228 votes and Trump 310. And those were results for the same guys back in 2020. So Donald Trump there lost for Biden, but now he has majority. Again, potential majority because it's not the election day. Elections are coming in November. Remember the yesterday's article from CNN that Biden requires more sleep, so he told governors not to disturb him after 8 p.m. Well, probably Democrats understood that they messed up with this article because it also lowered the rating of the current president. That's why today Biden said in its statement that he will work 24/7 for United States of America, but definitely he should manage his work and rest periods. So yeah, I think it was too much from CNN, even though they published the truthful information, but it played in favor of Trump. At the same time, Joe Biden said that he will continue to run. I'm running. No one is pushing me out. I'm not leaving. Even though there was the information published by many of the sources that the part of the Democrats were trying to search for the alternate candidate for the next president's position. Because as I showed you before, all of the swinging states mostly support Donald Trump. So he potentially could be the next victorious simply because people think that Joe Biden is not physically fit for that high position in the president's office, and I partially agree with that. Well, the main advantage of Joe Biden that he isn't the Donald Trump, so people will vote for him just not to get Trump elected. And with this candidate, Democrats absolutely need to figure out what to do. They need somehow to reform Joe Biden to show that yes, he is not young, but he is physically fit. He can speak normally, argue with Trump or with other competitors, be, let's say, energetic, and maybe the priority will turn also in favor of Joe Biden. But for now, unfortunately, it doesn't look like it might happen. You know, I even heard some of the conspiracy theories that Democrats put Biden for purpose for Donald Trump to win. Because in the next couple of years there will be a huge economic crisis, so Democrats want to lose, but I don't believe that conspiracy theory. Those mostly shared by the ex-media bots. And somehow bloggers spread those ideas even further on YouTube, Facebook, on the same X platform. You know, I do not tend to believe in any of the conspiracy theories because after all, it's just the conspiracy with no any proofs. Absolutely great news about the Patriot systems delivered to Ukraine. According to Politico source, the next week Ukraine will have the green light for 4 of those systems to be delivered as soon as possible. Germany already agreed on that, and probably that system has already been delivered to Ukraine. Also, we're waiting the positive move from Romania and the United States of America. Probably Israel might also help. The name of the guy is Sergei Aliyev. He's the Russian military blogger and also the Russian military guy. Well, he was finished recently by Ukrainian drones. In the video that you saw before, he said that the Russian artillery simply misses the target, and locals do afraid not of Ukrainian artillery but the Russian one because their houses are totally demolished, but Ukrainians hit the military targets very precisely. And we see how Russia just annihilates the own city of Shebekino. There were several of the attacks of the Russian Volunteer Corps together with the Russian Freedom Legion, and with all of those attacks Russia used lots of the artillery systems to hit their own civilian buildings. Plus they continue to drop the aviation gliding bombs, which sometimes hit also their infrastructure, especially in Shebekino. It's not far away from Vovchansk, which is on Ukrainian territory. That's why sometimes by mistake Russian pilots bomb Shebekino. The most of the civilians have already left Shebekino for good, and this trend I think will continue. You know, it's been 10 years since Ukraine liberated Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Drushkivka and Artemovsk from the Russian Federation. Separatists and the Russian proxies under the ruling of Strelkov-Girkin, probably you know that guy, he's now in the Russian prison, were able to capture those settlements. Actually, all of this war in Donbass started from Slavyansk. But later on, Ukraine launched the counteroffensive, pushing them away and causing to retreat from Slavyansk to Donetsk. In 2014, Ukrainian counteroffensive was really effective, but later on Russia sent their regular forces, and now they officially confirmed that with only Russian regular forces, the Russian proxies were able to stop Ukrainian counteroffensive. There is the town of Ilovaisk, where Ukrainian soldiers were just encircled by the regular Russian armed forces. After negotiations, they promised the way out for Ukrainians, but later on fired that bottleneck, causing tremendous losses for Ukraine. By that time, it was a great tragedy. The similar stuff happened in Kramatorsk, and after the second encirclement and retreatment from Kramatorsk, Poroshenko signed the Minsk agreements with Russia, winning the time for Ukraine to prepare for the future of war. But after all, in 2022, Ukraine really wasn't ready for the Russian full-scale offensive. Well, obviously now Ukrainian army is much better, it receives lots of the weaponry from our allies and able to fight even against the second army in the world. But back in 2014 it wasn't possible, so Ukraine had to sign the Minsk agreements, but they were never fully implemented in life. And by the way, Russia was the side which cancelled those agreements. And now you see how far Kramatorsk, Slavyansk are really from the front lines, but those settlements in 2014 were occupied by Russians, so Ukraine did a huge job by pushing them away from this area. They were moved to this place. You see, this is the border of the self-proclaimed DPR. So the war itself in general is already very long. 10 years. 10 years Ukraine is fighting against the Russian aggression. And by the way, under many of the United States presidents, Obama, Trump, Biden, could be Trump again, who knows. But when Trump was elected, he didn't solve the issue. So why should we believe him that he is able to handle it now? Well, there is indeed the problem with the Russian hospitals in the bordering regions of Ukraine, like for example Rostov Oblast. Yes, the Russian wounded personnel has been delivered by those buses, and they just leave those open air because there is no enough space inside the buildings. Also, there are the problems with medical supplies and basically with medical staff. Those are not enough to cover all of the Russian needs. For this reason, the aftermath for the wounded Russian soldiers is dramatic. They are not receiving the treatment at the proper time, which potentially could lead to very bad health issues. By the way, the Russian parliament is working on the project to allow people without limbs to drive cars. Well, there could be lots of those kind of the drivers. One more Russian Iskander strike on Ukrainian positions in Mirgorod airfield. This time not far away from the airfield. Ukraine put the air defense systems S-300s to protect the place against the Russian surveillance drones, but they were not able to recognize those drones at the proper time. Drones spotted those systems and Russia again launches their Iskander missiles, and as you see, they hit the target. What I must say that indeed it was a real Ukrainian S-300 air defense system, because here you can see clearly the rocket fuel is burning. This is how you basically may identify whether it was decoy or not. So Ukraine also hits lots of the Russian air defense systems, but Russia does the same. The battle for the sky continues. Yeah, sorry guys, for today I was kind of frustrated because first of all there were just few of the awesome news for Ukraine today. Plus I haven't slept at all for already more than 50 hours I think, because I had the issue with one of my last videos. There was the restriction, so I tried to battle it and finally I won. But it cost me several hours of no sleep at all. And now I went to the other place completely exhausted from the road. So sorry that this report was some sort of the flat one, not encouraging, not entertaining. Hopefully tomorrow I'll perform much better. Well, my friends, anyways, if you like what I do, just press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. And as always, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.